In 10 days in Sudan, more people have lost their lives than in the entire war in Gaza. That's a heart-wrenching video. The first time I saw it, a week ago, whenever it started to first make the rounds, I was deeply, deeply moved by it. Watching a young child beg for his life and just considering that this is the reality of many people in Sudan and other places in the world is something that simply has to be talked about and something has to be done about it. We're here today with our friend Mansur Ashkar. Mansur, thank you so much for joining us again to talk about this important topic. I'll just make a quick introduction. Let me know if I miss anything. Mansur is one of the most interesting people that we've ever had on, one of the most interesting people I've met. He is a Druze, Israeli Christian, former special forces in the IDF, hostage negotiator, has studied psychology and history, and is a true student of the world and an expert on many things. So Mansur, welcome.
Thanks for having me here, man. Just like you said, it's such an important topic, and I would even add, I was one of the first ones in Israel to actually start volunteering with the Sudanese refugees when they came. I helped, initially it ended up being the government of Israel, establish some systems to how to take them, because they came to my city. They were one of the first cities to come, and we started seeing these beautiful, tall, black kids barefoot walking in the city, and that's how I got to know about the whole story in Sudan. Some of my best friends are from Sudan. They grew up in my house, literally. Some of them lived with me. So, just like you said, in 10 days, more humans have been butchered in Sudan by the Muslims than the entire war on Gaza. I mean, let that sink in. As a matter of fact, in 2 years, the last 2 years, 2023 to 2025, the same time frame as October 7, and the estimate is 400,000 Sudanese civilians have been massacred, either by the government or by the opposing army, which both are led by Muslim warlords and both are led by, you call it Arab Muslims. Let me explain the war in Sudan, if you don't mind. People don't understand that. Sudan became a sandbox for ethnic cleansing, where the Arab Muslims, the brown Muslim, the brown Arab, like myself, Middle Easterns basically, are killing the blacks for being black. So it doesn't matter if you're Christian or you're Muslim, just, you're black, they kill you. So that's the racist war. And the raging religious war of killing the Christians for being Christian. And they've been doing that for the last 42 years, you can say. The first war, they killed about 2.5 million. From 83, if I'm not wrong, until 2005. 2.5 million. Second war in Darfur, about 300,000 to 400,000 died in 2003 to 2005. No, 2008. So we're talking about 5 years, about 400 people died. And then there was skirmishes, killing. 400,000, yeah. And it's crazy. The numbers are insane. And there was skirmishes. And when the war on October 7th started and all eyes were on Gaza, trying to make it look like there's genocide in Gaza while Israel was just trying to bring back their hostages, 400,000 people died in Sudan again. And people need to understand, we're talking about Christians. That video that he showed of that kid, from what I understood from my contacts, he's a Christian kid who is pledging for his life after his family was murdered. And, just watching a human begging for his life, a little child, that this is the most precious thing that he have. Call it spiritually, biologically, it's like his life. He doesn't want to lose it. It's not a toy he doesn't want you to take. It's his life, and he's begging for it. And they're toying with him. They've been filming themselves toying with mothers. There's a very hard video. You see a mom clinching to her babies, and they're just laughing, and she's like ticking, because she can't protect them. Later on, they executed him. That's, as far as we know. As a matter of fact, there is right now a crazy trend, a bizarre trend, where people are going in Google Maps, pinpointing spots where the genocide is happening. Why? Because now that the war in Gaza is over, and, these activists have nothing to shout about, mainstream media can't really ignore what's happening in Sudan. So they're trying to cover the genocide that has been happening there by, mass graves, burning the bodies, digging them in, and hiding them. So people are pinpointing it before it disappears. And you can literally see bloodstains and bodies from satellites, from space. That's how much killing have been done there. And this killing is not the kind of death that you had, when a nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima or Nagasaki. This is people going with machetes, killing in the name of their religion and in the name of pure racism. And it's simply being ignored.
So let's unpack some of this, and this is a podcast where we typically talk about Israel and freedom and the way that Israel connects to the rest of the world. And so some of our listeners may be wondering, what does this have to do with Israel? Not a ton exactly. There is a connection, and of course, I do want to say that for those activists around the world that claim to care about innocent life and claim to care about the lives of children, you need to be focused on what's happening in Sudan and other places in the world right now. And it does very much connected to Israel in that sense. If you are, concerned only about one people group, I think you should really call to question your motives. But I don't want to make this about Israel today. Honestly, I want to make this about these suffering people in Sudan and understand what's taking place there. It is also interesting to note what Mansur just said, that Israel has historically taken in refugees from Sudan. And I think that is really, really important for the world to understand and see. It's going to be overshadowed. I don't know if there'll ever be books or stories or films made about it. That would be amazing if that was the case. But Mansur, what you're talking about, I know was some time ago, was many years ago, these communities of refugees. How long ago was that?
So actually there is books written about it. The wife of my pastor from Eilat wrote 2 books about it. People Tall and Smooth and etc. Israel was the only country in the Middle East that actually helped Sudanese and welcomed them and sheltered them. When they went through the journey of running away from the genocide that is happening in Sudan by the Arab Muslims killing them, then they went to Egypt where they were being killed again by the Muslims. So then they worked really hard and they saved a lot of money and they managed to pay the smugglers to go into Israel. But often what the smugglers will do, the Bedouin smugglers in the desert, they will take the family and then they will throw them in a hole in the ground. And then they will take the father out and tell him, you have 1 month to go to Israel and give us $40,000. If you don't give us 40 to 60,000, that was like the numbers they used to throw back then. If you don't give us the money, we're going to harvest the organs of your family and get the money through that. I mean, this is real stories, by the way.
How long ago was this?
That was about 2007 or 8. That's when they started coming.
I remember that
because that was the first break that I took from the military. Yeah. I took a break from my military service. I traveled the world, came back, and that's exactly when it happened, just when I joined university. So I was really involved in that. So I've met some of these men that came to Israel terrified, they've never been to a modern country.
That's an interesting point and worth noting before we move on. Just the diversity of everything you just said, that the world doesn't know about Israel at all, that your Christian pastor in Eilat was one of the first to take in refugees from Sudan, in the only country in the Middle East that has taken in refugees from Sudan. And that is, again, Israel, the quote-unquote apartheid state, with a Christian pastor taking in people of color from the continent of Africa that have nowhere else in the world to go, that are in the most dire situation that you could possibly imagine. Imagine fleeing for your life with your family and making it from Sudan to Egypt, or to somewhere in the Sinai desert, and then having your family put in a pit and held hostage again for money, for financial gain. It is hard to wrap your mind around that here in the West. We just are not in touch with that reality, and we need to be. So that really is the point here today. And so, Mansur, let's go a little bit further. What is the end game here? Who is behind these atrocities?
It's basically, like I said, it's Arab Muslims killing black for being black, killing Christians for being Christians. You have the SAF, which is the Arab Islamic Regime Army. That's the official government, which is involved in killing just as much. And then you have the RSF, which is the Arab Janjaweed militias, which are the opposing power. It's another warlord that is trying to take over the government. Again, Muslim faction that is going around and they're just killing each other and killing everything in their way, and mostly ethnically cleansing Sudan from black people and from Christians. Both of them are in
Why?
on that.
What's the end game? So you got these two factions that are fighting each other, and then you've got, and in the middle of it all, they're murdering black people for being black, and they're murdering Christians for being Christians. Why? What's the end game here?
So the end game of killing the Christians is quite an obvious because, they're taking their Islam to the Muslim Brotherhood Salafi extreme kind of end, which is the Christians that are infidels and, they should kill them. And also they enjoy killing. These are like war tribes and just very, very violent people. There's child soldiers is very common there. So when you take children from a young age, you drug them, you make them just killers. You strip them from their humanity, you kidnap them for their families. Then it's just the cycle never ends. They're just in it for the killing. Like you can see videos where they're bragging, I killed 170 people, I killed 50 people.
So this is part of the caliphate. So at one level, it's not so much a nationalistic thing as we understand nationalism. This is just part of this expanse of radical Islam building their caliphate.
Yeah, absolutely. This is by definition what Sharia law unchecked looks like. The only places that you see in the Arab world where Sharia law is working pretty well is places that Islam regulates itself very heavily. And then they actually have a pretty good life. Like, look at the Emirates. Some people say that Dubai is safer than many Western countries, but that's because they regulate themselves so heavily. For example, Zohran Mumdani would not ever be elected in these places. Actually, he would be arrested in these places because Muslim Brotherhood is not allowed. So they're so critical against the radicalization that is inherited in that religion that they stop it. And any place that doesn't do that extreme check on Islam just goes wild crazy. Look at Syria, look at Sudan, look at Nigeria. The list just doesn't stop. So in Sudan, it's just been going on for 42 years. 42 years, that's insane. And then you ask yourself, where is the Black Lives Matter? Where is it women's rights, children's rights? You know how many sex slaves have been taken there? How many women have been, I don't want to use that word, but have gone through terrible things there, and you just don't see any human rights talking about it. No Greta Thunberg making any, sailing to go and save the people. It's going to start getting more in the media now. You're going to start seeing activists in America talking about it, all eyes on Sudan, etc. And why is that? Because there's a shadow war going between United Arab Emirates and Qatar. And they're both right now trying to blame one another for what is happening in Sudan because many Muslims are being killed as well. Now, these countries, they hate each other so much. And now that the eyes are not on Gaza, it's just, what is going on with Islam? Why are they killing so many people, Christians and etc.? So they're trying to politicalize the death, the genocide that is happening there and blame it on one another. And when these countries start blaming something, what they do, they're very good in controlling the media. They're very good in controlling the academia. And Qatar specifically is even better. So Qatar right now is pushing, and you'll suddenly start seeing all kind of pro-Palestine, either Muslims or useful idiots in the West, bashing the United Arab Emirates, bashing them and saying, look what they're doing in Sudan. Look how come you're talking about it now? This has been going on for 42 years.
So tell me a little bit about that, because they're both functional there. I know the Muslim Brotherhood is, of course, what's really behind Qatar. But as I understand it, the Emirates is backing at a state level some of the activity in Sudan as well. So
Yes.
what is the reality? What do people need to know? Because it seems like both factions are indeed functional there. What's the difference in terms of the way that plays out on the ground in Sudan, whether you're backed by the Muslim Brotherhood or whether you're backed by the Emirates?
Most simplistic way is that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And both groups have been trying to prevent the other one from getting a stronghold in Sudan. For example, there was a time where Iran was trying to control Sudan, to use it as a smuggling route for weapons so they can bring it to Hezbollah, into Palestine, into Israel. And then Israel just went and bombed these convoys, and then Iran kind of pulled back. And what happened is the way they do it, the government in Sudan, like I said, the ruling Arab Muslims there, they're basically going to go with whoever gives them weapons so they can use their weapon to kill their own people. So one day, you know, the Emirates will come and say, listen, guys, don't work with Iranian, don't work with Qatar. We'll give you drones. You know, what do you want? We'll stay with us, you know, kind of let's calm things down here. Be on our side. We'll give you. And then they take the drones from them and go kill their own people. And then, you know, Qatar will come and say, no, we'll give you better drones. Be with us. Help us promote our jihad around the world. And they've been just kind of shifting them. So often, I would say, on the, you know, on the defense of the Emirates, they're less prone into the genocide aspect that is happening there, of the killing the Christians and etc., because they are much more closer to the West, way closer to the West than Qatar, for example. Qatar, on the other hand, are just extremely into Muslim Brotherhood and into promoting, you know, world jihad. So for them, the more Christians you kill, the better, as long as it doesn't come backfires on them. So that's why Sudan have just become a sandbox of very immoral warlords, savages, who just will go whoever gives them weapon, and they usually use their weapons first and foremost on the Christians and on the black people. So that's like in a very short way explaining that craziness that is happening there.
We have been so privileged and so entitled here in this country that we have no orientation towards truth, towards the natural created laws that exist in the universe, the first of which is self-preservation. How do I stay alive? And in countries like Sudan and Nigeria and these other places in the world, where if you make the wrong decision about who your leader is, it costs you your life. It costs your family your life.
Science is not an identity. It's not keeping people together. People did not go to war to defend a sieged Christian country that was about to be taken by the Ottomans. And the knights did not jump on their horses and just ride through day and night to go and save Europe from the Muslims, because there was a bunch of scientists that were living there and they shared the same idea about how should gravity work. It was because they had a Christian identity that held them together. LGBT community also is not a real identity that is unified. And I know people are going to hate hearing that, but let me explain. Where are the people in the world that are killing the most LGBTQ members? In Muslim countries. What do the LGBT community do? Queers for Palestine. So they're literally sometimes even go and cater for the ones who want to kill them and even go and support and elect them. So the only real identities that the West ever had that actually countered radical Islam that came to conquer the world was Christians, Christianity. They were the only ones who actually cared about their members and about their people. All the way that they were willing to go to wars in faraway nations to go and defend their way of life. And that's why we have Western civilization. When you have people that have been playing Settler of Catan for so long, trying to conquer the map, and then one group of players has decided, we're not playing anymore, and just go and start drinking coffee, latte macchiato, and talking about other stuff. But the other player is full on. He's still playing. He never stopped playing. He want to win that map. He want to take it over. So it is your problem. They're literally coming and trying to take your way of life. It is your problem. And a side effect, a byproduct of people that say it's not my problem anymore is when real genocides start happening in the world and nobody cares. They're coming and killing your own, brothers and sisters to faith. And you don't care anymore. Why? Because you stop believing that it is your problem. And I think, I'm sorry to say it, but there's no rest in this planet right now as long as there's evil. The only thing needed for evil to prevail is good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke said that. One of my favorite quotes, I remember I had it in the army, my commander had it when I was serving in Gaza. And that always reminded me that as a good person, you cannot just say, it's not my problem what's happening in the world, because either way or another is going to come back to you.
Well said. What can people here in the West do to help the situation in Sudan?
First of all, you need to expose it. People...
So bring awareness.
Yeah. One of the interesting understanding that I had recently is many of the problems that we're seeing happening today is because many people get emotionally involved with things that are happening far away from them, and they're just easily manipulated. And that's when you start getting people just so angry at Israel and all kind of stuff, but actually, ignoring real genocide that are happening because people are not informed. Now, when it comes to the crimes that Islam is committing, it needs to be exposed. It's easy to expose it. You don't need to work really hard. Just go in the Middle East with a camera, turn around. Everywhere you turn, there's going to be some kind of a crime against a child, against a woman, against a gay person, against a Christian, against a minority, against a Druze, against a Jew. It's like, it's crazy what is happening there. So we need to stop ignoring it and hold accountable media that is trying to hide it from us and make us, look at other stuff that they want us to look on. Because let's be honest, I mean, they're controlling how people should feel. I feel like the first thing we need to do is not let it be brushed under the carpet and not let it be played by a politicizing power like Qatar or the Emirates, who are trying to push it through their own agenda. It's very clear what's happening there. Religious ethnic cleansing, Muslim killing Christians, and a racist ethnic cleansing of Arabs killing black people. That is as simple and as barbaric and satanic, you can call it, that is literally happening right now in Sudan. And it's happening as we're speaking. I think I've checked the numbers. These numbers are going to shock people, but in the last 2 years, 400,000 people have been killed. That's 200,000 per year. That is 16,000 per month. That is 550 people killed per day. That's about 23 people killed every hour. That is what's happening in Sudan for the last 2 years, the same time frame as Gaza. We're talking about women, children, and innocent people butchered in the most horrific way. Why are we ignoring that? This has been happening for 42 years.
Yeah. Are there organizations that people can get involved with that you're aware of in order to share this information, bring awareness, engage in this somehow? Are there other ways that you're aware of to engage? And if there aren't, that's okay.
I think that's one of the biggest problems. When you ask it right now, I suddenly thought about it, and as someone who's been involved and in this conflict and has been hearing it inside out for so long, no organization come to mind. Like literally, there's not a single organization, and maybe I'm doing wrong with some organizations that exist, but obviously I haven't heard of them, and I know this conflict pretty well. No organization has been come to mind that is actually properly bringing it up, because they don't have resources and they don't have the media behind them. Like literally, Human Watch, you can't trust them. The Arab world, the Muslim world, they're trying to hush it. The Christian Western media, they're not talking about it. So who's talking about it? Nothing comes to mind. And I'm sure there is, churches here and small groups there that are like pushing it up, but it's not big enough that I even don't know about it. Now you ask me this question, I can't tell you. Like, who is talking about it?
These millions of people dying aren't enough to get people marching across the streets of the West, you mean?
The established organizations are either ignoring it or it doesn't serve them. It's a very bad thing for a lot of these pro-Muslim Brotherhood organizations around the world, because it exposes them. They try to sell you that jihad is a good thing, that Sharia law is great, and go explain Sudan.
Just submit a practical way that people can get involved, and that is to understand Judeo-Christian values and start to advocate on behalf of Judeo-Christian values in your community, in your state, in your country, and in the world. Because that is the opposite of what's taking place, as Mansur is saying. If you want to see the apex of Sharia law, if you want to see the apex of what the caliphate looks like, go ahead and take a look at what's happening in Sudan. If you want to see religious minorities and Christianity being quelched and Christians being murdered, if you want to see people being murdered because of the color of their skin, take a look at what's happening in Sudan, and then you decide which value system you want to be a part of. Do you want to be a part of Judeo-Christian values? That the very first value is the sanctity of life, that every life is sacred and created in the image of God, in the image of a creator, that every life it has dignity and is worth fighting for. Well, that's what we stand for when we say Judeo-Christian values, and it is based on the Ten Commandments. That came, of course, through the Jewish people, and then, of course, was, as Mansur so articulately and accurately stated, was proliferated and brought to the world through Christianity. And so we've got to come together.
Yeah, you know what, Shimon, you said something, and I think you need to choose what kind of a movement do you want to be part of. Do you want to be a part of a movement that will end up oppressing women, oppressing children, encouraging underage marriage, eliminating different religions, free speech, people of color, other religions,
subjugating people for the way they look,
slavery,
or their gender? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So is that the
subjugation
movement?
based on your gender or the way you look.
It's happening, true. So is that the movement you want to be part of? Then by all means, go against the West, go against Christianity, and go and join Islam. If you want to be part of a movement that is literally pushing the world to a better place where there's human rights, freedom, and respect, and the core value of the human, actually, a lot of people ignore that. One of the biggest quotes that you've been hearing in Muslim mosques around the world, Muslim Brotherhood mostly, and it might shock people, but I've been hearing it for the last 20 years. They keep saying that the problem of Christianity and the West is that they have taken God out of the picture and they have put man in the center and what he feels. It's all about who am I, how do I feel, and what am I. God is not important. Us is not. It's all about me. They became very selfish. And then they come and say that's why it's going to be easy to take them. We tried to take them twice by the power of the sword and we failed. Third time we take them just by the power of the womb, by the boats, or just by bringing down democracy, by using their own system against them. Because we, Islam, we care about God. God is in the middle. No one else is important. I is not important. Is Allah important? And look how right they were when it comes to that. So there is a movement there that is moving as a movement and is literally coming and taking away your cities, taking away your churches, taking away your schools. I once had a friend of mine when I was in the service. I came with like a crazy idea. And he came and
This
he
is
told
going
me,
to be good.
Mansur,
Whatever you're going to say right here, I can't wait to hear.
yeah, yeah. He came in, I made a few phone calls and, a few meetings, not phone calls even. And someone came and told me something very smart. Said, Mansur, whatever you do, you don't want to be running between the legs of the Mossad and the CIA. So you better get their blessing about it. Like, talk to them first. And I was like thinking for a second, that was someone that knows what he's talking about. And I thought like, whoa, that's actually very true. Because I was literally thinking of something humanitarian in Africa that is good. I was helping a friend build a school there, and I was dealing with a lot of crazy stuff that are happening there. And then I realized that's very true. You don't want to be caught running between their legs. And I don't want to be caught running between their legs now, but I've heard a crazy story from several, I would call them reliable sources, that when the former head of the CIA met with the former head of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, Al-Jawlani, and he had an interview with him, and he told him, I'm a great fan, and etc., which, everybody thought, like, that's quite bizarre. This is the guy that you were fighting with all along. This is the organization that did 9/11. So someone actually told me that he was told that just have an interview with him and we'll pay you $5 million. Again, that's a source that told me that. I wasn't there in the room to hear that, but it made me think. If, let's say, and that's a problem with capitalism right now, that there comes a point, if money becomes your god, then you literally have no values. Then you didn't betray the country. Okay, so I just sat and talked to some terrorist, gave me $5 million. Great, I can, for me and my family. But the people who have money can now play you. One of the hardest things that we had when I was in the service and we were fighting terrorists, most terrorists, I would say 90% of them were cowards. Literally cowards who are just brave on women and children and innocent people. When they face the special forces, when they see the IDF, they just run, they shit in their pants. I'm not joking. I have many of them that we had to clean the Humvee later on because they peed or shit in their pants just because I brought them for a call. It was over 5% that were true believers. And they were hard. You can't fight them. Well, you can fight them, but you can't stop them. You can't buy them. You can't shift them. They might play you. Sinwar, for example. He was a true believer of the cause. He will fight until the death. Say what you want to say about him, but he did die fighting. While the others ran away from Gaza, he stayed there. So there's enemies that you know that
He threw that broomstick.
through the broomstick and etc. Maybe he was trying to run, but in the end of the day, he was not living in the fancy hotels like the other ones in Hamas. So he was a true believer. So you always have this true believer, and they're the most important players that you have and the most dangerous players that the other ones have, because they cannot be bought, cannot be swayed. And the only hope that I have for it is if Christianity will reclaim its identity. They're the most important, most valuable player. Even the Jews are not. I would say it, and maybe some Jews will not like it. They're not important in that battle. Why? Because they're small. In the eyes of Islam, when it was the conquest, the Jews were always a small nuisance. It's just a small group. Just push them aside. They were always in battle with Christianity. That was the only enemy that they had. Empire coming, trying to take the world, Christian pushing them away. All the others were small players.
And yet, I will say Israel stands as a democracy in the Middle East, this tiny nation, surrounded in an ocean of totalitarianism, religious extremism. There is a place where Judeo-Christian values are still at the center of society in the Middle East, and that is Israel. And it is also the reason why people are marching about this topic. It is because it is a bastion that flies in the face of everything that radical Islam stands for. And it is one of the only countries, if not the only country on the planet, that's facing it head on, actually doing something about it and cares about this way of living. And I want to say, Israel doesn't have the luxury of not doing something about it.
Yeah.
Because it's a matter of existence for the nation of Israel and the Jewish people. And it's something that we aren't. It's a dynamic that we aren't in tune with here in the West. An existential threat.
Israel is going to be the last one standing on a hill full of like Muslims all around, and I don't know what all them. Israel is going to be the last bastion of freedom and humanity because they will be the last one to fall. The way I look at the map right now, and I'm not Jewish.
You know who's not confused about the role of Israel in this whole story? You know which Christians on the planet aren't confused about the role of Israel in this battle?
Which one? I'm asking myself.
The Christians in Africa. The Christians in Africa that are losing their lives right now to radical Islam. They're not marching. They don't have this question about Judeo-Christian values that we have in the West today that we're seeing emerge on the right. They know, and I, we've got a good friend, Dumasani Washington, that believes, the future of Jewish-Christian relations is actually going to be in Africa because they understand what is at stake, and we don't here in the West. I'd be curious your thoughts on that.
Crazy. You brought a point right now that I didn't think about it, but it's so true. When I was in Africa, I remember one time I climbed the mountain. It took me 2 days to get there. They invited me to talk in some tribe that never met an Israeli in their life, and they wanted to see an Israeli. So I got there, irresponsible backpacker, just finished my service as an officer in Special Forces, hiking the jungles of Africa.
What an Israeli they got.
Well, yeah, exactly. That was fun, man. It was actually funny. There was raining, the Jeep broke down. The guy that was with me, having a nervous breakdown, said, "Listen, man, I hiked a lot. I literally walked all over Israel. We can get this." We hiked the whole mountain. I got there, my new pants that I bought for this, event because I wanted to look good. Because in Africa, you dress up, you don't dress down. And, everything was full of mud. And then when we got there, I saw a whole tribe standing on the edge of the mountain, singing and jumping with their outfits and everything, like beautiful, African songs. And it reminded me of the verse, I think, from Isaiah. You can correct me if you remember, but I think it was from there that says, "Blessed are the feet of those who bring good news." And back in the Bible, the feet were considered something very dirty. So why would you say, "Blessed are the feet of those who bring us good news"? Because people don't care about how you dress and how you look like if you bring them good news. They're just happy. So they were happy to get the good news. And you know what the good news? I was shocked. I prepared like a whole speech. But in the beginning, when I was standing there, someone asked me and told me, "Please, mister," and I'm going to do the accent here. I hope no one get offended here. But he said, "Please, mister, all my life, I've been reading this book, and I've never met a man that came from the Holy Land. My Muslim neighbors keep telling me that the Bible is full of lies, that Israel doesn't exist, and that the whole Holy Land is Muslim. Can you tell me if Israel really exists, and are the Jewish people still alive in the land of Jesus?" And I just looked at them and says, "Of course it exists." And they started crying and shouting, "Hallelujah." And then I said, "I lived in Jerusalem." And they were just going crazy. And then I kind of said, I swam in the Sea of Galilee where Jesus walked on the water. I was raised by the Red Sea where Moses departed the sea, and they started singing and they said, I knew it, that the Lord is alive. Israel exists. The Jewish people still exist. Christianity is true. And one day the Messiah will come and even the Jews will open their eyes. So you saw suddenly real Christians that understood the Bible in the most basic, simplistic, pure way. No games, no replacement theology, no crazy stuff. And all they wanted was just evidence that it's actually true because everybody's trying to lie to them. And to what you said, they still hold to the most pure way of Christianity. God bless them. They really actually are suffering. They're being killed and butchered for their Christianity. They don't hate Israel. They did not abandon the God of Israel. They did not abandon Jesus Christ. They did not abandon their Bible. They're still standing on it. And it's just mind-blowing how easy was it to reaffirm them because they had real faith. They didn't need me to bring them some, National Geographic scientifical findings that can prove the Big Bang Theory. I don't know what. They just so the Bible, so Israel really exists. You've seen a Jewish person with your own eyes. Yes, I live there. All my friends are Jewish.
The Bible's true.
The Bible is true, yeah. But that was, I saw the love that they had and the way that they, understood the Bible as it is. No games, no manipulation around, no Candace Owen, Tucker Carlson, all kind of, phony.
Nobody's trying to make a living off it.
Out of hatred
Trying
for
to get
Jews,
rich off of it.
exactly. Yeah. So you're 100% right, man. That was a good point.
I did something I said I wasn't going to do, which was go a little bit longer than we expected. But this is so important to understand, and I want to thank you, Mansur, for taking so much time and sharing your thoughts, your insights on this. As always, such a wealth of knowledge and also just wisdom. Really, really appreciate you bringing this to light. And folks, please share this information. Share what's happening in Sudan with those that you know. If we can find some organizations that are engaging in this, we will share with you ways that you can engage further. But for now, let's keep bringing awareness to this. There is a battle being waged against our way of life, against the future of our societies, the future of our children, and we need to be aware of it and engaged in it. Please like, share, subscribe, get engaged in the battle.